Hi. Hi. How are you?
I am well, thank you.
Good, good. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate this.
I wouldn't miss it.
So really what we're just gonna kind of go through is how conflict affects your role, just how ADR kind of touches your role as well. And I'd love to speak to you a little more about your Seven Habits experience. But first, would you mind telling me a little bit more about your position?
My name is Lorie Fotland, and I work for Staffmark. Been with them for about 5 years. My role is a recruiting manager, so I hire a lot of different people for a lot of different positions. Some of them are direct hires, meaning that they go from outside directly to the corporation or a company who's interested in hiring them. Another role that I have is like temporary assignment, and it's a long-term assignment. I have some people that have been on basically they're embedded contractors, and they've been in those positions for up to 4 years, is my longest. And then I also have a temporary type position where someone comes in. I have a client who needs them for 2 to 3 weeks. They perform a function or a service, and then they are, as a condition, at an agreed position where they would be leaving. Um,
Okay, so
so
kind of like an extended temp agency then, right?
I do all kinds of, yes,
Yeah.
direct hire, temporary, or a short-term assignment. So
Okay,
yes.
that's really interesting. That's really interesting. So, do you deal a lot with drafting contracts, or is that through the independent agencies that hire you for their HR activities?
I have different types of customers. Some are, as I said, direct hire. They may call and they just don't want to deal with that part of it. Sourcing and going through all of the background checks and
Sure.
drug screens and that kind of thing. And then there's others that I have long-term assignment contracts with that I deal with on a regular basis, dealing with turnover and that kind of
Okay.
process.
Okay, so how you're dealing directly with these people then?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The customer as well as the employee.
Oh, okay. Are you there?
Frozen.
Oh,
There
okay.
you go.
Good. I just a little more about how you're dealing with directly with these people. I'm sure you deal with a lot of conflict. Can you delve a little more into how conflict affects your role?
Well, typically when I have a conflict, it's primarily because the employee didn't read either they didn't read what they were signing, and so therefore they don't understand how they're what they've agreed to,
Sure.
or they just want it to work a different way, so they try and couch it in a different light. But typically, our process is very streamlined, and if they read what they're signing and ask questions up front, we don't typically have to have conflict. Unfortunately, just by the nature of having a contingent workforce or temporary workforce, you're going to get some people who just are a little more on the negative. They choose to focus on the negative when they don't get the result that they want to
Sure,
have.
they want immediate results. They want, yeah.
Often I'm told, I need a job today because I have bills tomorrow. And my response to that is, I need an employee who has bills every week, not just next week.
Yeah.
The idea of turnover is not good for my clients. It's not good for me. It's not good for the employee. But typically, if you're finding someone who's in an urgent need to get to work tomorrow so they can pay a bill on Friday, they're not looking at it for the long term. And that's what you really need, is you need long-term employees. Even to accept an assignment, say the assignment is a 4-month assignment, you need them to understand that it's a 4-month assignment from the beginning and behave as such.
Sure.
A lot of my contracts are temp to hire, so essentially it's like a 90-day interview, and you might come in, accept a position, and by the 60th day, you're really not meeting the expectation of the client. So at that point, then I have to say, unfortunately, I give feedback on a regular basis, but they never like to hear when they aren't meeting the expectation.
Sure.
And
Sure. So how often would you say you deal with conflict? If you could give like a percentage of your time.
well, I would say probably 25% of my um, experience is going to have some, not necessarily conflict, but an uncomfortable conversation. Sometimes it's, they just don't understand the process, or they don't want to understand what they agreed to.
Yeah.
So, for the most part, it's that they haven't taken the time to really understand the contract or the position that they've accepted. And so we have
Sure.
those kinds of.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, we learned in class that 25% of leaders deal with conflict in their role. So that's unique that it aligns. You talked a little bit about the ADR clauses in your contracts. Have you ever had to follow up with an ADR proceeding, or is that a little more to the legal department of Staffmark?
Well, we are pretty, as I said, pretty streamlined. It's not a fly-by-night situation at all. There is a very detailed process that they go through for onboarding, and typically when someone has an issue, we can show them how this was explained and covered off, and we can get through most of it without it having to be an ugly legal situation. Typically, they just don't understand. However, if it does get to a point where we have a major discrepancy or something that they really feel that is wronged about, we have a outstanding legal department and HR department that are there to support and assist us, and help us as a Staffmark representative to get through the process and protect us legally. It's important that we all understand what they're signing and why they're signing it, and help them to get to that point.
Sure. So a little bit more about your 7 habits. We discussed in class actually the 5th habit, how it's important to understand and then seek to be understood. Do you find yourself applying those principles to your professional behavior as well as your home life?
Absolutely. I've been a 7 habits facilitator for, I believe it's 27 years. And habit 5 is always the one. Well, they're all difficult, but habit 5 is an interesting one. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. When someone comes in and they're upset, if I get upset and react to them, then it escalates from there. Okay. But if I stop and I really try and get to the bottom of what it is that they have an issue with, and then help them to see either what they aren't understanding or what maybe they signed and didn't read, or really spend some time and get to the bottom of what their me issue is. And then sometimes I can help them turn it around, and it doesn't have to be a negative situation at all. So the habit 5 is a wonderful platform to kind of come into and
resolve conflict.
Exactly. It definitely helps us to resolve conflict. And it's simple, really. If you don't react emotionally, it causes them to just take a moment and pause and listen. But when they come in, they're not listening. They are reacting, and we just can stop and take it all in, let them get it out. A lot of times they need that psychological air, and then not tell them what they don't understand, but show them how that they might be able to resolve this, or at least help them to understand why they're in this situation. So sure. Yes, habit 5 is amazing.
Sure, that reminds me of a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote about the mind being stretched to a new dimension, how it cannot return to its original dimension. Once you've, kind of, again, like instructed 7 habits, I'm sure that permeates all facets of your life. That's really interesting.
I am definitely a Covey person. I think that it's personal leadership. You once you get it, you get it. And it's something that, the irony there is, it's stuff that most of us were taught by our mothers, but until you put it in a frame of reference, like you said, until you stretch your mind to accept that ideal or that value, it can be, we flounder with it a little bit, but once you get it, you're all set.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. I know you only had a short 10 minutes, so just thank you again. This is really helpful, and again, I just think it solidifies my understanding that I've kind of developed in these past couple weeks in my ADR class. So I really appreciate it, Lorie.
Well, I appreciate your time. I wish you the absolute best, and if you need anything else, please reach out.
Okay. Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.